My wife, Ryan is on here too, and we were super excited to do this together. We do have a 1-year-old baby in the other room, so that will dictate how long the two of us are on here. Um, but yeah, this is our true passion. I coach a lot of people in all different businesses. I started in the real estate space, and um, primarily, my main goal working with people is helping them free themselves from the center of their business, in whatever business it is. But I found that a lot of people will build really big businesses and have really great lives, and it's still by default. And with a little design, we can really leverage what we've created to have a quality of life that, maybe we admire in others and we've never really thought it's possible for us. Maybe it is part of the vision, but living remotely and leading remotely is definitely a big passion of Ryan and mine. Ryan, do you want to hop in and maybe add and give a little bit of a background?
Yeah, I would say probably, well, one like coaching, the only way I was ever able to get to where we are is through coaching and one having like a professional coach, but then I have a built-in husband as a coach who from a very beginning was just like real estate is a vehicle to get to this life by design. And for me, I didn't, I had to be coached hard to really understand that because originally we sort of we built a real estate business and then he went and became a team leader and I became the team owner and I built the whole business around me. So then I was totally a slave to the business and I couldn't leave. I couldn't do anything. I was working so much. There wasn't any leverage. When you like, I remember Gary Keller would say, like, you have this puddle of an org chart. And that's definitely what our org chart looked like. It was like me. And then I have like early renditions of the org chart, and it was like me. And then all of these like satellites coming off of it. But the thing was, I was the center of it all. And so the biggest like transition was um going and spending time away from New Hampshire because that was what the started to be this question was like, how can I build something that I'm not the center of? And that has been the process. That question has been like the central part of like how I've been able to build the business without being the center of it was just trying to answer that question. I'm always still trying to answer that question. But then being tethered to a vision of like actually you can live away and not and still have a business that thrives.
Yeah.
But in the beginning it was really just like having to divorce my ego because there is something in real estate that feeds the dopamine and that cortisol, like that rush of energy of like, I'm helping someone and you're problem solving. And like, it's what do you need to do in your life to get away from that feeling to then be able to build something that you don't even need that and you can fill it with something else.
Yeah. And then just to give people that don't know us or our story, just a little bit of background. Um, I got into real estate in 2012, and I was team leader. We built a team. Ryan kind of really developed that team. Fast forward to today, we're now we're going on our 7th year this coming winter in Barbados, living 6 months a year, 5 to 6 months a year, um, traveling in a camper van, a couple months a year, and living in New Hampshire, which is where the home base of our business is. And um, not that that's everyone or should be everyone's vision, but I think the fact that we're doing that lends itself to a lot of different mindsets and leverage that we've tapped into over the years to create that kind of freedom in a business. We have a thriving real estate business. I run my coaching business. We have an investment business. And so we've kind of gotten really clear on what our values are and then designed everything around that. And I think that's probably the most important part. Like the more people I coach, the more I realize that it's not the work that we're doing in knowing our numbers, the conversions, like all that stuff. All that stuff's really a byproduct of what you're trying to do for your personal life. And so the hard part for most people of freeing themselves from the business is taking the time to step back and really visualize. and write down the different iterations and think through the different iterations. And it's amazing how much time it actually takes to do that. Um, I'm very grateful for, I think, just having parents that allowed me to do that and pushed me to do that. But the visualization, I think, is the most important. Um, the brighter and clearer you can make that picture of, let's call it an experience that you want to have, right? An experience that you want to have that you'd regret not having because you have the means to do it, right? It could be anything, small, big, but having that vision and creating such clarity around what that looks like that you're then willing to do whatever it takes to get it, right? And so, I think people go too quick on that, right? Well, I think I want that, or oh, I just heard Mike say live in Barbados for, half the year. How about that? Maybe I'll do it for a year, right? It's like it's got to go deep. You got to really figure out the layers of how does my budget change when I do this? How do I manage my time when I do this? How would I leverage that? And that typically will lead people into the next phase where they're like, whoa, like I didn't think about that many layers of it. And I don't think I can or maybe should put the kind of energy in that would allow me to do something for 6 months remotely. And we didn't do that either, right? It ended up being a practice because the first iteration of that, and it was me pushing Ryan to be like, look, like we went on vacation, we love that. Like I hate hearing people say, back to reality when you're on vacation. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, this is reality. Like, some people aren't going home because they are home. Like, that's a real thing for some people. Like, why can't it be for us? And so I pushed and we immediately realized, like, we don't even know what to leverage. And so there's a saying that one of my coaches would always say, which is like, you're trying to solve problems that don't exist. And until you step away and you really let something break, you're likely to keep solving problems that don't exist and never even figure out what the real problem is. So we started practicing and we went to Barbados. I think, right, was it 2 weeks? But we said we were going for 1 week.
No, we didn't even tell people we were going. Like we started practicing in 20, I think like 2017, because we had gone on we also came from a lot of debt. We were financially kind of illiterate, and we made some like I decided I want to be a farmer. And I don't know if you've ever heard the farming. If you want to, what is it like? If you want to make a fortune in farming, you got to start with a large fortune.
If you want to make a small fortune in
Yeah,
farming,
you got to
start with
start
a
with a
large
large
one.
fortune.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a fortune when we started. So by the end of farming, it was a dire situation financially. So when we really got into real estate too, we were in negative $250,000 debt. So we had to like really hustle in real estate to like get to a place where we then traded our unsecured credit card debt for IRS debt. And so it was like 2017 was the year that we got rid of all the debt, and then we were starting to be like, okay, we can breathe. Let's like start to design this life. And so we would go on these 1 week. I think it was 2017. We might have went to Barbados 3 times, 3 different weeks, and we would just go and then work remote and try to figure out what that even meant. And it was pre-COVID too, so it was like nobody was like at that time it was like a very foreign concept for me. And then I remember I was still building something that was very much reliant on me. I am super competitive, so I was like always trying to do, can I do 50 transactions? It was like still a very ego led like mission on my end. And it wasn't until I went to a silent meditation retreat for a week and I came back out of that being like, I can't keep going forward if I keep making it about me. I have to break everything we've done and build something that doesn't exist without me. And I think it was the practice of doing the remote work and then truly stepping away and being quiet for a week, to then get to the point of like, now I have the courage to actually start this next version of what that looks like. And it really came down to building an operations team. And I mean, some people might say, wow, you were really over leveraged with the ops for the amount of production you were doing. But I just knew that I needed to build a 10-lane highway and then I would fill it with cars, which would be the agents. Um, after I know that that highway is like a super highway. And so then that was kind of my mission of like, how can I become the leader of the ops team who's going to maintain the culture to then be able to bring agents into our world. And so that took a lot of time and effort to build that ops team, and which is primarily what stepping away and working remote forced me to do because I am such a high D person that prior to 2020, when we started doing substantial time away from New Hampshire, I just thought I was the best ops person, the best everything. So I was always just doing it, and stepping away and being away made me have to figure out the question of like who, not how. And so who's the person versus me trying to figure out how to do it.
I think it forced the discipline too around just being in proximity of the ability to do it. Right. And so I think that that's one of the hardest things for us to let go of is just, well, I'm here. I have the intellectual equity. I might as well just do it. And that exposed a lot of that when we started being away, because now we all we could do is line up the next round of listing appointments in a week or two or three from the start of being away. We couldn't deal with signs. We couldn't deal with dropping something off. We couldn't pick something up. We couldn't deal with any of that. It had to be remote. Um, and the part that we didn't realize, I think the gift that we didn't realize was going to come from it is it forced us to do all that personally too. And so that has become a big part of it. And especially when I talk with my clients, it's not just the professional part, right? It's the personal part. Like, where's the leverage needed? Like, how do you really free yourself? Because it starts to be a catch-22. You're like, well, I could free myself from my business, but I can't do that here, right? And I hear all the excuses, right? It's like, well, my kids are at this, I can't do that here. I can't do that there. We have this going on. I'll have to check on this building. I have this investment. It's all of this, all of it's leverageable. We just have to take that step back to figure out what's that next level of visualization. And I promise you, if the work hasn't been done to have such a clear vision and crystal clear picture of what you want to experience, and I keep saying what you want to experience because I think if we say like I'm going to change my life forever and this is how I'm going to operate, that can be a little more burdening when really what we're really trying to do is whatever this conversation sparks in you, just start to build that relationship with yourself that you're going to have an experience in that way, right? Have that first experience. And if that burns bright enough for you, you're going to be willing to do whatever it takes. I'm leaning on this book right now. This is one of my favorite books. Hold on, I got to take my thing off here. Um, but it's about exactly that. If your will doesn't equal your want, you're not getting what you want. All right, I use Google. I use the Google one now. There we go. All right, this book here. It's kind of a silly title, but by Mike Hernacki. Super short. It's very quick, but it's about that. So if your will doesn't equal your want, you're not getting what you want. And I think in this world, I think a lot of people spin their wheels around getting this remote lifestyle, being able to lead remote, like just break through and into having that experience, because they just haven't spent enough time in the vision room, right? And putting it down. Because once you figure that out, then it becomes budget, then it becomes your org chart, and it becomes your budget, I mean your financial um, cash flow, all of that. And I coach a lot of people that make a lot more money than Ryan and I do and have a lot more money sitting in the bank. And sometimes it shocks me to see um, and people that are still trapped and can't really break free of it. So it really is something that I think people need to start as soon as possible to figure out what that looks like for you. And then it starts just as simple as having clarity around what's incoming, what's outgoing. If that vision's bright enough, the script is going to start to change in your mind. All right. Things like I'm like a car guy. and I've had some really cool cars. But when this vision got so bright, and I was a team leader looking at the parking lot every day and doing a great job and getting a lot of accolades, I had this vision of I want an experience to be in a camper van. And what would it look like to work remotely in a camper van? And I thought about it so much and I cast the vision and I wrote it all down and I got the budget and I did all of that, that all of a sudden me driving the nice car turned into us having a Prius that was, $20,000 or
Still
something
have it.
percent
Like
down
that's the
that we
thing
still
too.
have.
What do we
And
still focus
it's
on?
just like it's the value shift, right? And I probably spend more time than anything talking about this aligning with the values, the relationship with your values, casting the vision, because we have to pull ourselves out of the daily grind and the do more, get the to-do list done, and spend the time over there. And then all the other stuff comes into perspective. The priorities that once were get rearranged because the vision is so bright, you're not willing to not have the experience.
And then there's like things too, I think, where like the sacrifice and the commit financially, like people are like, oh, you live, you must, I don't know. There's like this idea of this amount of money. But like you start to learn, like we for 8 years lived in a two family. And instead of living in a single family, we just bought real estate. And then our cash flow on a monthly was off, like we weren't paying to live for eventually that 8 years. And we were just building equity in our rentals. And then working because I set the team up with a solo what is it? Why am I blanking? S Corp LLC, and I put myself on salary. Then we learned that because I'm out of the country, 170 days a year, I can partially exclude my federal income tax that I pay through paying myself through W-2, which then equates to what we pay to live in Barbados for our housing. So like there's all these things that over time, because we just got super strategic, we're able to like offset an expense and gain something over here. But it was because we just like would sacrifice, like we could have been living in a nice house in 2017, but instead we're like, no, let's like hunker down and stay in this two family because it's giving us all these opportunities to do these other things and be more free than if we got the nice house at that time. And so same with the
Ryan,
2015 Prius C. I'm still driving it and we almost just bought a new car, but we're like, well, we're only here for 4 more months. Why do we need a new car? We can just live with the Prius C and then maybe next year we can buy the car. But yeah, we're just like constantly negotiating these things.
well, and we also have a vision of buying a house in Barbados, and it's like it's just so. Ryan, I was going to ask a question. So maybe you could share a little bit about like what do we do to create these visions and then together, like come together to hold each other accountable around it. Like, what's some of the foundational tools that are being used? And I want Ryan to say this because I think you guys can see already. Like, I am such a vision person and can really hold the line when it comes to standards and values and ask those questions. And Ryan's hyperactive with like just finding resources and getting things done and finding the right people. But there's a whole bunch of things that we're checking in on a very regular basis that allows us to
Well, I
have
think
the clarity.
the financials was a huge one because we were in such a dark place financially. It was like I made it like that was kind of my one thing of like I wanted to go from survival to thriving. And I was incredibly motivated to be like we were in such a place where we were living where every dollar we made was paying for our past. And I was like, we have to get to this place where every dollar we make is paying for our future. And so that was just like creating habits that I'm very, I don't know if it would say psycho about, but getting habits and getting the right advisors and top grading the advisors to make sure that the financials were dialed in. So like just on a personal level, using Monarch. I use the tool Monarch for the personal budget. And so I every morning I look at like what did we spend yesterday? And then
I can't even get her a birthday present
I
because
know. I was like, oh, I saw you bought me my birthday present. Yeah, no, I'm not saying this is a good behavior, but I'm always trying to figure out like I want to make sure I really am super clear. Like I know how much we were just out in the van for a month. I know exactly how much we spent on van gas for that trip. And so like I'm always trying to, and then that's another reason why I'm like, one of my like values is like I don't love to spend money on gas. I just like, I don't know, it's just like the environmentalist in me. So that's why I'm like, I offset it with the Prius. And I'm like, I can get so much mileage on the Prius. So when I'm at home, I'm driving the Prius all the time and I'm okay with spending the van gas. Anyway,
So,
on our conversation.
but talk about like, so it's not just about being frugal, right? It's
No, no,
really
it's like
about
this huge
casting the vision because this was a problem, right? Like I have a huge like desire and tenacity for outdoor recreation, and that happens with like really nice mountain bikes and surfboards and things like that. And that needs to be a budget item. So we're not like
fighting.
yeah, so we're not fighting basically, and we're living the life that we want to have. So, like, talk a little bit about that because I think that's super important in this as well. It's not just about
Yeah,
like
like starting to
being
get clear because
strict
we
about
don't
budget.
know, like, oh, you're gonna go spend 5 grand on a bike. That sounds insane to me. But then when you look at it at the context of the experiences we're having, because we have that the bike and then now the bike trailer with our daughter, and then I see that okay, ultimately between the bike trailer and the bike, it's like $6,200. But then I see these other places where we're making decisions where we're not spending a lot of money. Like I know a lot of people are paying $1,000 a month for the car that they're driving around, and every time they're filling it up, it's $140. And I'm like, okay, that adds up really quickly. We're not doing that, so we can pay for this thing that then gives us these experiences. So it's just kind of like always looking at
It,
what,
it's the right? It's the values, right?
yeah,
But
the
it's
values. Like so, make
because that's where the accountability comes in, right? Because it's like you start to make money and we make really good money and we have assets that are creating residual income and like you start to like have that happen and it's like well I can afford to do that but we have a value around investing, we have a value around the experiences we're having, and sure like I could go buy the car that I want, but then Ryan's going to ask me, like, well, do you want to do that or do you want to have, like a $15,000 budget for bikes and surfboards this year? Right? And it's like, well, which one's aligned with the value? And I think that's a regular thing that we're visiting. I'm forever grateful for, I mean, Jay and Gary for writing the one thing, because I think a lot of that has come from there and really distilling on a regular basis. Um, how those values are changing,
I
right?
think
Our values when we were in our 30s are not our values in our 40s, and our values in our early 40s pre-baby are not our values post-baby. And I think building that strong relationship with the dynamic aspect of the budget is absolutely critical. You then take that time to sit and really cast a vision, and I'm talking about like time. Like I spent 2 years not listening to the radio driving to the market center just north of Boston and thinking, getting myself to come back to the thought, right? It was like a 45 to an hour drive, coming back to the thought because I would definitely drift. But it was 2 years, no radio, getting myself to think like, what's the next thing for me? What's the experience I want to have? And I thought about the van so much. I was like, you know what? I'm going to sell my car. I'm going to get this super expensive van. I'm going to drive that to work. But through that process, it was like, what's going to allow me to work remote? What's my next opportunity? I want more time for myself and I want more money for myself. And so we created a buy box. And I think a lot of this falls into this concept also of a buy box. Your vision turns into that buy box. Like you're not buying an opportunity that's not aligned with your vision. If you spent enough time on that vision, the vision's very aligned with your values and an experience you're not willing not to have. I mean, Ryan and I had a lot of conversations, maybe borderlining on arguments about me getting a camper van. And it finally came down to like, I don't know if I want to have this. I don't know if this is our lifestyle, but I do know I don't want to go another year without having the experience and knowing. And so that was a package that we could both buy into. That created some values about what type of van we're getting. What's the budget for the van? Are we compromising a car for the van? So if we just, right, it's like just all this stuff. Like, what does our schedule look like? Is that even possible? Am I going to be traveling by myself because Ryan can't get away, or are we going to loosen up her world, right? So it's like, but it became such, after those 2 years of me doing that and figuring it out and finally pulling the trigger, it was obvious that working with MAPS coaching was my next path. And I ended up working with MAPS for like 5 years, 6 years, I think. Right. And then that opened the door to my next path. Right. And it was like, it was aligned with those values. The budget was aligned with that. And then the opportunities, it became clear what's the difference between an opportunity and my opportunity. I started seeing the difference. Where before, and I think a lot of us that are on this call, were very talented and very intelligent. And there's a lot of opportunities. And until you do that personal work, it's really hard to differentiate between an opportunity and your opportunity. And I think the best way to describe that is taking the time to make that buy box so it's very clear. Like, this is like, has one foot out, one foot in. It's not your opportunity. Both feet in the opportunity have to be fully in your buy box, and you're going to be super excited to do it. You're going to be willing to do whatever it takes. And a lot of what this book says is when you're when you're willing to do whatever it takes, it's like the 80-20 principle. You actually have to do like 20% of it. You just don't know which 20%, so you have to be willing to do any of it, right? It becomes easier. The law of attraction starts to come in. Um, I also want this to be a mastermind. We have plenty of time, and I really want to make sure that we're answering questions. I mean, we have tons of resources when it comes to financial team, um, tools around vision casting,
I want to bring back, 'cause
values, all that stuff.
I did want to say like yeah, I got really specific about the personal finance, but I think there's two other things that we did financially was the net worth tracker. Since 2020, every single month I go through, it takes about 45 minutes and I go through every single asset, everything, and I put it on the network tracker. I got mine from Ben Kinney did a class called Win Make Give. And so I just use the Win Make Give tracker. I'm happy to drop a link to like the copy of it and you just copy it. And then every time I fill it out, I just copy it again and start the new one. So I have one of those, and that has been huge because even I'd say like a month ago, we ended up moving brokerages, which is a huge thing. I don't anyway. Our business set back in Q1. It was the lowest Q1 that we've had in a while because of just all these things that have happened. And I was starting to panic because I was seeing we do like a 30, 60-day cash flow. And I was starting to panic because I was like, oh my gosh, like we had a terrible Q1. I just thought I was reverting back to like 2016 Ryan and Mike finances, where it was like total survival. And then my kind of center line is like, okay, I'm going to do the network tracker. And so then I just sit down, I do the 45 minutes, hour, and I go through, collect all the data from the finances. And then I'm always like, okay, I'm not going bankrupt. I'm actually saw all these accounts gain money, like the investments, everything's working. And then I'm like, okay, just because there was a couple months of like a low cash flow doesn't mean like we're sinking. And then now, of course, like the summer, we're cash flows up again. But anyway, the network tracker has been great for my mental health because you start to see in real time, month over month, that compounding interest on all the things that you're investing in. So I don't know if people are doing that, but that is truly like a great thing to do. And taking the time
I
to.
think it also, and this it's interesting because we've been in this place for years now, this like place of like stability for years. And even just last month, Ryan commented on how important it is to look at that because of where we came from, like we still feel like we need to like grind for that next dollar. And like if we're having a month that is in the red, that it like puts us into this like emotional panic. But the reality is when you look at this net worth, I mean, we've gone like more than 10x from where we started, right? When we were like got into real estate, and it helps you realize like there's stability. Like I can keep on my vision. I do need to take the time and vision cast along with, my lead gen and all the other stuff. I wanted to also make sure that we highlighted you. Ryan said it two times now, very casually, but it's that 30, 60, 90-day cash flow.
Mm.
That's critical. I mean, that's my number one thing I do with clients in any business, is I help them move to a place, if they're not already there, where they are projecting how much is coming in 30, 60, and 90 days, and they're projecting how much is going out 30, 60, and 90 days. So, like Ryan said, Like we're managing and spending money into the future, not in the past, right? And I mean, I we were definitely in a place where it's like, all right, we're just gonna grind it so there's more money in the checking account at the end of the month than went out, right? Like if there's a positive balance, like everything's okay, let's keep grinding to what's happening 30, 60, and 90 days in the future. And it's not only about the net positive, but it's about seeing the net negative as well, right? Because if there is a net negative, you can strategically go into debt instead of going into debt at the last minute on a credit card, right? And so it was just really about managing all of that into the future. And I want to just put a pin in that to make sure everyone heard that. And I'm more than happy to share my simple template too. It's just very simple of like how much you have pending, how much is coming out in 30 days, how much is pending, how much is landing in 30 days and 60 days. Most people it's 30 to 60 days. Some people, like definitely in like the commercial world or where you have long transactions, 90 days is pretty important. Um, and then having your actual budget in a simple formula where 30 days and 60 days, it shows you what your net is. So if you have a net of $10,000 positive, we should be talking about that now. Like when that hits your bank account, where is that going? Right? And if anyone's followed any of Gary's, Quantum Leap, like that kind of gives you that path. Like your money's only going to four places, right? You're spending it, you're investing it, you're donating it. Um, I can't remember what's the last one. I just blanked on that.
Parking it in your garage.
That would be spending it.
No, I know.
Spending, saving, investing, and donating. Those are the four places. And so it's like you just have to go through that exercise. Like, well, what is that happening? Um, and then as people are growing into that, it is often like we're 10,000 negative. Where does that come from? Well, if you're doing the right things and you want to bet on yourself, you could definitely, um, I mean, you could definitely go into that debt strategically, right? You could decide how that happens with a HELOC. You could not put it on a credit card. You could do a balance, right? So we go into these deep conversations about how do you maximize your position. Um, what questions do people have? Anything specific, general? It can be about your specific business, whatever you have, where we want to make sure we're a resource and
I'd like, if anything specific towards me, our little human is waking up. So, um, our leverage of childcare starts next week. But I love being able to be primary childcare too.
what questions do you guys have?
No questions.
I had a question, just about really trying to get super clear about finances. And like, I love, Ryan, how you said that you're looking at those things, because that's also one thing that I'm really wanting to get very clear on, and have that and just kind of get an idea between like you and Mike, how often you guys meet. Like, I mean, is it something like, is it a weekly thing? Is it a like where you're, because being that intentional and knowing exactly how much you spent on van gas, right? And all those little things. It's like, are you better at it than maybe say Mike is?
Yeah, I'm definitely got my finger on the pulse more than Mike does. We have a really awesome fractional CFO for our real estate business and our investment properties. So we have a standing meeting with him every month, and he manages 60 teams businesses. So he's always able to also give us this insight on the team level side of like what's happening in the market, how we're trending. And we can go really when on those meetings, and Mike attends them as well, we can every line item we can open up and be like, all right, why did that change from this month last year? And so that's just a standing meeting, and then also having that third party accountability, that's not just because we are a married couple. So I think sometimes that having that outside accountability, not sometimes, all the time. The outside accountability on those types of things is super helpful. Um,
I think it's
and
also realizing like where your strength is.
Yeah.
I realized early on, like I love analyzing spreadsheets. I love like seeing, I love the optics. I love having optics on everything. I do not like creating the spreadsheets. I do not like data entry. I don't like any of that. And so early on, I realized like if we're going to be serious about this, I need to have people around me that are doing that at a high level and understand it. Because if I want to see something a certain way, I don't really have the willpower, aptitude, or skill set to do it. So I think that's really important too.
So
Like,
that was like that's the first thing. That happens once a month. And then on a cash flow, once a week, usually on the beginning of the week, we have the 30, 60 day projections that our ops team puts together, which I'm pretty sure can be done by an AI agent, which I keep harping on them about because I manually, our team is doing it right now. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can get an AI agent to read CSU and put this in the spreadsheet for you. But anyway, and then personally, because I'm a little bit like my morning like peruse, some people go on Instagram, I go on Monarch. Mike and I chat quite often about like I'm like, oh my gosh, our oil is this much. Maybe next year we actually shut our house down. Like we have, and that's just a personal thing. Is like we're kind of having that conversation more often than not, just because I'm very fascinated about where the money goes. And then having a meeting with we have a tax strategist that's an accountant. We have 4 of those a year. And so that's really like what kind of purchases are we doing? What are we doing to navigate taxes? And so that happens. And then also our financial advisor. So they're peppered in um, throughout the year with our team.
that's an important differentiation. We had an accountant for a long time. We have a tax advisor who also can submit our taxes, right? It's a huge difference,
It's
right?
a huge difference because we
The,
have
the, acca- yeah,
the
the
business.
accountants are typically super conservative by nature. The tax advisor has a dashboard with a meter of like you're earning this much money or you're projected to earn this much money. This is your tax exposure. What can we do to reduce your exposure through buying real estate or using like the out of the country federal income loophole or
Or
like
like buying our new van on the business because it's a mobile office. And like that, there was that tax thing that for when you buy a large vehicle, I don't know the specifics of it, but it was financially advantageous for us to buy that from the bit out of the business versus personally.
yeah, it's the tax advisor that's the one planting those seeds in us. Um, Basically because we read that book by Tom Wheelwright and we're like, whoa, like I'm aware now. I'm never gonna geek out on this stuff like someone else might. And we really just had to find the right person. Um, yeah, it was kind of
We also run a sphere-based business. I'd say 60% of our business is past clients, sphere, allied resources. And then we do have well, and then we've really over the last couple of years got really strategic around our Google reviews. And we're one of the only teams in the area or businesses in the air, real estate businesses that have like 235-star reviews. So that has helped. We do have a marketing company that does like SEO. But that's a small spend and that's also offset by a lender. But we do get a ton of call-ins now, and especially seller call-ins that we weren't getting previously because of that presence on Google. But yeah, we're a database business. So really that was a huge issue for me because so much of my business when I was doing 50 transactions a year was all Sphere. And I had to figure out how do I train and create was that myth understanding people work with you because it's you. No, they work with you because it's the standards you represent. So how do I create a culture where whether it's me or somebody else on my team, they are happy with that? And of course there's going to be it's not all roses. There's the thorns of like, we grew up a really great agent who I gave so much of my sphere business to, and then they left the team, and now some of those sphere people are calling that person. Yeah, that hurts, but also I've still built something that's so bountiful that it's okay, whatever, you
well, I
know.
think that's where I come in because it's like that bigger vision that keeps us accountable to
Yeah.
that, right? It's like, I have to say, well, look, we did the values, we cast the vision, we know what the budget is, the projection is above what we need. So does it matter if you lost that person or are we actually winning?
Yeah.
Right? And we have that conversation about like chasing that person and feeling bad and having to be like Johnny on the spot for everyone, everywhere, all the time. That's not winning.
You know what's winning is that
It's
I created
ego.
an environment where somebody has become such a great agent that the person comes back to them. Then I'm like, okay, now I'm like my mindset isn't like I have to be the great agent to everyone, is I created a culture where we create great agents. And that's to me more important. Like of course it's like an ego hit, but it's still like it's more important now as a leader that I'm creating a culture of great agents. And yeah, so it's a mindset shift for sure, and it's not easy.
No, no. I'm working on the same thing, but just
Yeah.
curious. And so,
Yeah.
did you see any of that sphere-based business drop as you go, or do you feel like your percentages have stayed pretty solid as
So
a
our
whole?
agents sphere business is, that's also is what we help them with.
Same. Yep.
So that's, I think, no, their sphere business doesn't drop. My personal, yes, of course, because I'm just like not transacting. Like I transact here and there and I
Mhm.
pick and choose. And
Although I don't know. I think that's an interesting one because a lot of people still do reach out and Ryan just gives them to a
I
team
refer
member.
to the team, and sorry, it's not the same as it was because I'm not in the weeds with it. But the people that do work with me don't care that I'm not in the country. And so it's
Right.
more like I only want to work with people that value my skills and my expertise and my resource in the market. And if they're going to have a problem that I'm not here, then they can work with somebody on my team. And if they're just going to have a problem in general, they're not for me. Even if they were, in my sphere technically. But like, the true
But,
sphere people like don't care where I am.
and it has changed where the people that we're attracting are attracted to us because we're able to do what we're doing, right? Like they
Right.
realize like, wow, like this system they've created is really powerful and it does work because they've created a business, right? It's not just them.
And I
Um,
think I asked this question from a little bit different of kind of an angle, and just that I'm not necessarily looking to live somewhere else for months at a time. But I do have three kids in crazy sports doing crazy things, and I do want, and I hand off most of my buyers to my team now, and that's fine. And we have hit a couple different bumps where people don't want to be handed off, right? And I do want to be able to travel when I want to travel. So I'm trying to just build a business that's less dependent on me every single day.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant that Ryan created what's called the Hvizda method, right? Like that's our last name, Hvizda, that's the team name. And so if you want that method,
I would
right?
love that method.
And that, right? But
Well,
if
just our listing method, really, when it
right,
comes to
right. But I
just
think it helps that separation because whether someone else is sitting down with you, you are working with Ryan. She developed this method. If you want the experience that the last, hundreds and hundreds of clients have had, this is how we give you that experience. We follow this method. If you want to follow your own method, like I can refer you to another real estate agent. But if you want this level of experience, and I that did a lot to align the standards with the name. And so it kind of allowed us to step out a little bit because they do feel like we are working with Mike and Ryan. And if we
Hmm.
go somewhere else, now we're not working and getting the same experience that all these people had. So whether someone calls me or Ryan and they never see us in the transaction, it's built that trust. And I think that's the true power of a brand, right? But in real estate, it's like you are the brand. So how do you separate that? I think that's the bigger question, right, Brooke? Like that's like how do people feel really good working with you and your team because you're a business owner that's only working 10 hours a week and you're with your kids and you're doing all that stuff, right? Like,
I want to just say
well,
one quick thing
uh,
too. That is like,
hold on. To me, like that's a business that's like I want to be served by.
Hmm.
And I think that's a mindset that needs
It
to be adopted.
it is, and I've been pleasantly surprised in forcing myself to do this, that people do actually get that, right? There's a huge
Mhm.
fear when you start to do that. I spent half of May in the hospital, and that was a really great like way to see that things do move on without you, and you're not actually that important as, and you're not as important as you think you are, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been, I'm kind of taking that momentum and running with it. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, that's actually what it comes down to is we're not, is it?
we're not that cool.
I've had so many like little lessons like that where I've like handed, I'd like be like, hey, Chris, this person, I met them here, blah, blah, blah. We had all these experiences together. I told them you're coming. And then I'll check back in with him like 2 weeks later, be like, how's it going? He's like, Ryan, they don't care about you. And I'm like, I know they don't
I
care.
don't. Not as much as you think they
They just
do.
want to have a great service. They just need to sell their house. Like they didn't
Mhm.
care that it wasn't me. But he's had to tell me this is our director of sales. He's probably told me that a handful of times. Like they didn't care, Ryan. And I was like, you're right, they didn't care. But Marlene has a question. I'm gonna
Le- um, Hey, Mike. Thank you guys for doing this. So my question is, and I know that Mike and I have gone through a lot of struggle together. But when you guys started casting your vision, because you have two individual person, how was that conversation? My biggest struggle is that my husband is not in the business. I'm a very, very high driver. He is the opposite of me. He's like, oh, let's, rainbows and things like that. But how was that conversation from the beginning to where you guys are right now?
I think it's easier for me to visualize and like develop that thought. So I kind of I just asked Ryan questions to get her to do that for herself. So possibly my ideas could be accepted. That's kind of my like the real behind the scenes. But um like I mean I just asked Ryan, like, what do you want to experience? What's like one experience you want to have in the next 12 months? Like just what's one thing? Like what do you want to do? And I think it was just like starting to open up that conversation. I think especially when we started, Ryan at that point had a very hard time thinking about us doing anything outside of just making money.
Yeah, because we were in such survival mode. I will say something that was super helpful because I was probably I was definitely the one that had to be dragged along. I think what was super helpful for me was the 10-year letter exercise. So we had done it in like I had to do it a couple different times for it to really start to saturate. But whether that was like us going to Jordan Freed does like My Freed Life, like going to his class in person, like we flew to Asheville, that was super helpful. And then we had Ryan Allen do a version of it for our team as well. And I know we have a woman on our team who was at a crossroads and she's pulling her husband along. And we had the 10-year letter exercise at a team advance. And she had this aha of like, this is what I need to do with my husband. So they went away on vacation and they sat and they did the 10-year letter together. And it totally transformed their retirement plan. And she went from taking her 401k, taking a chunk of it out, buying this investment property in Turks and Caicos, and now has this investment property that her and her husband get to go. Like they started to envision a different life for themselves because of that exercise. So I know Craig Zuber has a new book out and they're doing workshops, but that could be a really good thing that you bring your husband to. Because that's what I've seen it happen to me. I've seen it to happen to other people.
Mm.
Like it's super helpful to think about your 10 years from now and what that's going to look like.
Cool. Thank you.
Everyone see that Ryan dropped the listing presentation in there into the chat.
I think the other thing too with building that like kind of leveraged business was that I had mentioned previously, like we had this ops team. Like I built an ops team that I still like. I'll go to different masterminds and people will be like, you have that many ops people? But I wanted to provide the same leveraged life to the agents on my team that I have. So like that's one of the reasons why like Chris has been with me for 9 years because we truly have created an ops team that he's the dad of a 5 and a 7-year-old. Every night at 5, he is offline and he is dinner, coaching soccer. He takes every Sunday off. most of Saturday. And for him, he's like, that's the most valuable thing of being on the team is like, I truly am with my family during family time.
Yeah.
And that's because with the ops team, we have a virtual assistant that works nights and weekends. We have our director of ops works, working hours. We have a TC, and then we have a database manager because managing the database is like the database is our lifeline. So just somebody's constantly in there making sure it's, healthy. And then a listing manager. So we just truly are quite leveraged with the ops and the agent's jobs. It's just like follow up with your sphere, follow up with the leads that came in, negotiate and like list and buy, like help people buy and buy and sell houses.
Yeah. We had a lot of conversations and fear um, around like who's going to want to work with us if we're living this lifestyle, right? Like they feel like they're just like funding us like living in Barbados, right? But what it came down to is we only want to be surrounded with people that are living intentional lives. And we want to offer them the opportunity to have a real life in real estate and not have to work around the clock and, not go on vacation. Like we force our agents to go on vacation. We force them to have that time off. We force them to have this high quality of life. That's just part of our standards. And the people that we've attracted are people that have visions of what their life's going to be like here in Concord, New Hampshire, right? And it's like everyone has their own vision, right? Chris, like she just described, and Brenda, who has
Brenda
been,
takes every Wednesday off to be with her grandson.
right, her
It,
grandkids are here, like, and that's why it's like it's not people that want to live out of the country. Like that's great. I'd love to inspire people that want to do that. They're not the right person for our team in New Hampshire, but I'd be happy to to work with them to get them there. But it's these people that they have a bigger vision, right? Like we want people that want to drive um to a certain level because it's not just about making money, it's about building wealth. It's about having that quality of life. And so I think if you're just open about that, right, you're going to inspire more people than you're going to repel, right? And I think Brooke, like to what you asked, um, I think what most people find is it's the exact opposite. Instead of people feeling like it's a takeaway, you start inspiring people and people that are operating and thinking at the level that you really do want to work with. Um, Question, books. What is a book you mentioned? Oh, the 10-year letter. 10, yeah. I'll
the
put them
name of
all.
your book. Can you put your book in there too? The one that you kept telling
Oh
me.
yeah, the ultimate secret to getting it's a long one. Actually, I think my assistant's on the call. She'll put it in there. I think she has it. The ultimate secret to getting absolutely everything you want by Michael Hernacki. Um, yeah, the other book on my desk is always this one because Gary Keller recommended this. Like, you want to figure out how to manage people? He's like, it's seldom the adult who's misbehaving. It's almost always the inner child. It's like, so just read some child psychology books and you'll have that taken care of. And this one, Have a New Kid by Friday, is amazing when it comes to setting standards and holding standards. It's incredible. Um, what else? Any last questions before our hour is up?
I have a random one. Do you have
Yeah.
like a planning time checklist that you use, like a weekly or monthly one?
No. Well, you have like, do you? No, I don't.
Just curious.
No,
I'm making one, so
like
I'm
a time
like,
block for planning. So actually, when I was a team leader, I did. I had it super organized. And the way I did it was I put the time blocks in. So I'd have a time block for following up. I'd have a time block for planning. I'd have like whatever those time blocks. I would use the notes in the calendar invite. I would just open that up and put whatever I thought about in the note
yeah.
because I realized when I had like a lot of to-do stuff going on and a lot of stuff that was pinging off of me, I had this to-do list, but then it would take me a while to figure out like what gets delegated, what's like not important anymore, what has to, it just there's so much stuff. And so if I put it in the place where I was sitting down to think about it, I was able to organize it in real time. I don't know if you're following
No, I am. That's where
Yeah.
I'm at right now. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So you'll think of something and it'll be like, oh, well, that's actually like for the kids. And I have a planning time for the kids to sync the calendar so everyone's in the right place at the right time. Well, that doesn't just go on the to-do list. That goes on the time block. So when you're in that moment and you're like, fine, I have a half hour to organize everyone's calendars, all the stuff's in there. And
Yeah.
it's not, you're not having to look at that. And oh yeah, I have to talk to the accountant about this. And I have to talk to this agent about that. And I forgot to set up date night for my husband. It's like all that stuff just to get organized in the time block.
Yep.
Mike, Ryan, just I know you guys had talked about your financial team. Is there any recommendations in order to like choose a tax advisor or or putting together your team?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can recommend who we're working with, but for what I mean, the way that I approached it was like, well, because I have gone through a lot of bookkeepers, and then it came down to like, I need somebody that's fluent in, like, I just had standards after having so many bad situations. I had standards that I needed to have in let's start with the fractional CFO. Like, they had to be fluent in the MREA economic model because I want to run, a seventh level, leveraged business. So they had to understand that. And they had to also be able to give me my real estate investing numbers that like I need to see how our properties went. So I just interviewed people until I found that person. Um and actually fortunately my director of ops ended up finding our CFO because she went to the ops boss conference and she came back. She's like, I think I found our guy. He meets all the criteria. So it was just like figuring out what your criteria is and don't stop until you find somebody that meets it. And then
Well, and tell them who that is. Just give the
um,
referral just so we have.
his the company is Agent CFO, and his name's Michael Kilner. Awesome, and he will tell you too if you're the right client for him.
Yep.
So I love that about him too.
Do they work in Canada?
I don't know.
Yeah, but
I don't see why not. He's not doing taxes. He's an
Yeah,
accountant.
it's just doing the books.
There's no reason he wouldn't. It's just all the books and it's
That's just
all
the books. I
yeah.
don't know about I
Yeah.
don't know if our accountant works in Canada, but that was another one. I was in KW Wealth, so I just went asking about who's a tax strategist, who are you using for a tax strategist. I just kept asking that question to people that were above me in where I wanted to be, and so I just started taking recommendations and interviewing people, and then I found Upstream CPA is who we use. They're out of New York. Um, I don't know if they work in Canada, but I just like look at people and just ask for the recommendations and then go interview them to see if they're for you. And then,
And all this has really come from this like the who not how like concept. And it's like I feel the same way about the AI right now. It's like where should you be the technician and where should you just have enough knowledge that you can hire the right technician, right? It's like if you've never read Tax-Free Wealth, you might not know what to look for. But if
yes.
you read Tax-Free Wealth and then you start to like reread it and read it again and read it again to figure out how you can save taxes yourself and you don't have that aptitude, that's probably not the right thing to do, right? So there's like this threshold with everything. It's like you don't know what you don't know. So like I think for everything, it's like I need to know what this AI can do. I don't want my assistant to be AI, but I certainly want my assistant to be using AI, right? There's a big difference there, right? It's like I don't want to have to load everything into the spreadsheet, but I definitely want that spreadsheet available every day when I need to look at it and analyze my numbers, right? So I mean, I think that's where both those things came from. I recently had a client who hired agent CFO wasn't the right fit. He needed someone way bigger to organize like a presentation to a bank to get a huge consolidation, and so we moved to that. Right? It's like, and frankly, I didn't even know that existed until we had to go and do the research around it. Um, so again, it's who not how, and if you feel like you're putting too much energy into the technical part of it ask me or ask whoever like that has a bunch of resources who you should connect with that is in a similar position to you. But from what I know, Tuan, like those two people that Ryan just recommended I'd reach out to them first and just get a baseline.
Yeah, and then also when you're doing an accountant, if they have never read the book Tax-Free Wealth, they're not for you. That's what I fired our last accountant. And he was also so rude to me when I brought up a cost segregation. And he was just like, you can't do that with your multifamilies, blah, blah, blah. And then I went and did it and saved 30K that year in taxes. And I was like, fired. He was
Thank you.
I want to be respectful of everyone's
Yeah.
time. I really appreciate everyone showing up and participating. Reach out to myself, Ryan. My assistant will put our information in the chat box here. Whatever questions you have, we're really, happy to help out, especially in this space. It's definitely our passion. So thanks again, and you guys know where to find us.
Hi, guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.